Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much to Huawei for inviting me and inviting Jesse, the Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative, to be here and to share with you the work that we are doing. I guess many of you do not know about Jesse. So a snapshot, we are a business organization, so we bring together digital companies. We exist since 20 years, and we were created at a time that no one was talking about sustainability. And today, sustainability is on the top of every single agenda in every single country, and there are good reasons for that. And so as we were created, we had our vision about a sustainable world through responsible ICT-enabled transformation. And we mean these words, so we have been working, I think, in a responsible manner to portray the role of digital technologies to address sustainable development. And we work together to create the conditions that lead to new digital growth opportunities, to foster global relationships. We already heard that partnerships are very important, to define business cases for digital solutions for sustainability, and of course to position the companies, our members, in this field. And this is a snapshot of our current membership. As you can see, Huawei is here. Huawei has been a long-standing member of Jesse, together with many other companies. What is interesting about Jesse is that, unlike many other business organizations, we have many, many partners. And this slide gives you an idea of the type of organizations that we work with. And by the way, all these organizations, they asked us to be our partners. We never asked them to be our partners. And so you see here from UN organizations like the Climate Convention for Climate Change, the United Nations Environment Programme, the ITU. The ITU sits in the Jesse board with its Deputy General Secretary, Malcolm Johnson. We have collaborations with universities. We have collaborations with other business associations, like the World Business Council or the International Chamber of Commerce or the Wireless Broadband Alliance. So all these organizations are part of Jesse, are part of our work, and this is extremely relevant because the work that we do, it's shared with these organizations, and these organizations bring to Jesse also their perspectives. And this is extremely relevant and dynamic in the work that we do. And as any other organization, we have a strategy, and our strategy is driven by thought leadership. It's about harnessing the potential of digital technologies through disruptive and collective approaches. And we have a positive agenda. You see many people to talk about the problem. We like very much to talk about the solution. This is at the core of the work that we do, and we have always been working in this direction. And since many years, we have been developing this thought leadership approach through different reports that we have done with the biggest consultancies in the world, the McKinseys, the Boston Consultings, the Deloittes, the Accentures. So we have been working with these organizations to try to look ahead and understand what is coming to us, what are the next step of developments, and to adapt our strategy, but also to provide our members with the right information that helps them to sustain and to support a positive agenda. And as I said, we do not like to talk about the problem, but many people see ICT as a problem today. If I look back to my career, and I've been working in the telecommunications industry for almost 40 years, but the last 20 years, I was the Chief Sustainability Officer of Deutsche Telekom here in Germany. And when I first visited Huawei in 2007, and by the way, by that time, Huawei was a company of 17,000 employees. The main problem was about supply chain impacts. So companies like Deutsche Telekom and Telefónica and BT, we were looking at social and environmental impacts in the supply chains. So, and for that, we developed tools to help our members. We have today a tool where we have more than 20,000 suppliers providing data about their sustainability operations, and we provide that information collectively to our members. But around that time, the problem was very much supply chain. But if you look today, we are, I would say, under attack. It's a kind of war against the ICT industry. Our problems now are about supply chain, circular economy, energy consumption, privacy and security, digital divide or digital inclusion. So all these things are at the center of the conversation. And by the way, that started already in 2007, when, for the first time, our industry was criticized by emitting 2% of the global emissions, which was compared to the aviation industry. And as you know, the aviation industry has always been on the spotlight about emitting too much CO2. And so we decided in GESI to run a first study with McKinsey, and we asked McKinsey 3 questions. The first question was to confirm our footprint, so how much emissions our sector, our industry was emitting globally. The second question was about the enabling impact of digital technologies, because we know that digital technologies create lots of efficiencies in other industry sectors. And the third question was about the business value of those efficiencies. And as you can see in this slide, which is at the bottom, around that time, our footprint was confirmed to be the 2% of the global emissions, but the enabling impact of our industry was 5 times bigger than our own footprint. So a clear net positive impact, or what we call today the endprint. And this report that we called, or that we named SMART 2020, because we were looking at the 2020 timeline of the Climate Convention on the conversations around climate change. We've done this report with that timeline, and the business value was calculated around that time of being $1 trillion. When we published this report, it was used by many companies, universities, and so on. A couple of years later, we said, well, we need to verify whether this 1 to 5 factor is right or wrong. And so in 2012, we did the same report with the same 3 questions with the Boston Consulting Group. And by that time, the factor moved from 1 to 7. So our footprint was more or less stable at the 1.27 gigatons of CO2, so a little bit lower than we had discovered in 2007. But the enabling impact was increasing. And the business value was increasing as well. So the Boston Consulting Group calculated the business value of the efficiencies that our industry was generating in $2 trillion. And we did the same exercise in 2015 with the Accenture strategy. And why, maybe are you asking, why have you decided different consultancies? Well, we wanted to have different perspectives as well, using the same methodology. And in 2015, the report from Accenture strategy came to the conclusion that the factor was 1 to 10. And by the way, a 10 factor represents 20% of the global emissions by 2030 that our industry can bring down. So if these figures are right, the ICT sector alone could stabilize the greenhouse gas emissions at the level of 2015. And by the way, the business value calculated was equivalent to the GDP of China per year, 11 trillion US dollars. And so this is the cake that we have. So there is a clear business case around becoming more efficient. What we see is that not many companies are looking into this perspective. So what we see, normal business in companies is about, rewarding shareholders in the traditional way, but these impacts, they have not been measured, and they have not been calculated, and they have not been embedded into company strategies. But in fact, most of them, they have been realized, and we know that. And so, based on these findings, we continue to do some investigations. We did later on a report called System Transformation, Enabling the Global Goals, when the United Nations published the now famous 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And more recently, we decided to do with Deloitte a similar report to the 2015 report that we called it Digital with Purpose, because digital has a purpose. And we are the key and fundamental industry to ensure the sustainability of the planet. And all these reports now are available to JESI members. But before I jump into the Digital with Purpose report, I want to give you a snapshot where the efficiencies were generating according to our report from 2015 with the Accenture strategy. So our industry in 2015 could bring down 3.6 gigatons of CO2 in the mobility sector, 2.7 in manufacturing, 2 in agriculture, buildings, and 1.8 in energy. So altogether, 12 gigatons of CO2. So that means the ICT sector has the potential to maintain the global emissions, as I said, at the 2015 levels and decouple, for the first time, economic growth from emissions growth. And this was a fantastic result. And as you can see here, the 11 trillion US dollars, they can be harnessed by the different sectors, and we have calculated that as well. So we calculated how much value each of these sectors can generate through implementing digital solutions in their operations. So, of course, we also looked into the data centers. So we split the global emissions into 3 different areas. One was, of course, end-user devices. Data centers in 2015, they represented 0.36 gigatons of CO2 equivalent. So below, the end-user devices component, as well as the connectivity side. And we know today that the data centers are at the very core of every single conversation. They are the main concern of policymakers. We know that the European Commission has been looking at data centers. JESI developed, with its members, the Code of Conduct for Data Centers that exists today in the European Commission. It was developed by us, by the way, and the European Commission is using it right now. And we continue to work with our members in trying to understand what is the impact of digital. And we also know from the recent report from Huawei that replacing HDD with SDD reduces energy consumption by 70%, occupied space by 50% under the same capacity. So we have been following this research. We are convinced that digital is fundamental to address climate change. The problem that we have, though, and probably many of you in this room, you are only thinking about money, which is good, it's not bad. We need to think about money. But we need to understand that sustainability is a cash cow. And you have not yet analyzed that, or many of you have not done that. And you need to start to think about it. Because the figures I've showed to you, they are a clear demonstration that you can generate a lot of value when you become more efficient. And you need to market that in relation to your customers as well. You need to understand what is the value of your solution and show you to your customer and use that as a USP to better sell your solution. So as I mentioned to you, I promised to speak about our the Digital with Purpose report that we've done with Deloitte. And our report analyzed the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It came to the conclusion that seven digital disruptive technologies, like blockchain, 5G, virtual reality, cloud, and so on, those 7 digital technologies can impact in a positive manner 22% of the Sustainable Development Goals and reduce the downtrend of 23% of them. And so if we have this, and if we take this into consideration, the question is, how can we materialize this? And so in GESI, what we have decided is to put in place what we call the Digital with Purpose movement. We want to bring all the digital world together around a set of metrics that will be used to measure the impact of our industry so that collectively we can show that impact. Because today, each one of you is showing your solution, but the policymakers, they do not understand the overall impact of what we're doing. So our movement is about looking and redefining the purpose of the companies, addressing the problems that we have, becoming more efficient. On the other side, we have a set of metrics that measure the enabling impact of technologies and quantify that enabling impact. And altogether, it's part of this Digital with Purpose movement that we have now in place. Huawei is a member of that, like many companies. We have now more than 40 companies that joined the movement that was launched last year in Lisbon during the Portuguese presidency of the European Union. And we are now moving to organize a big trade fair to talk about digital and people. We need to better communicate what is the relevance of our solutions for people, B2B2C. We need to connect digital with cities. We need to connect digital with every single sector. We need to make people understand that we are part of the solution and we are not the problem. Thank you so much.